Yeah, thanks, everybody. My name's Chris, I'm an addict.
Hi, Chris.
Thanks, everyone, for being here on a Friday night. It's really good to be here. I haven't been to this meeting for ages. I'm still relatively new, still in my first 2 years of being a member. And this is kind of pretty much my favourite meeting, but there's some, other commitments in other areas of my life, which, by the grace of her name and my higher power, I still have stepped up on a Friday, so I haven't been here for a bit, so it's really nice to be here. Also, I had all of about 8 minutes to prepare for this chair, so which is probably a good thing. So we'll see where we get to. But one thing I've noticed, I've got 15 months clean, 15 months and 1 day clean. So that's where we're at. And I've been coming for about 20 months, so yeah, there's a relapse along the way. But what I've found in the chairs I've done is I go in thinking, I'll share all about the message and all about the hope, and then, it gets like 18 and a half of 20 minutes and be like, shit, I'm still talking about my, backstory. So maybe I'll just start off with a bit. This is the best thing that ever happened to me, finding NA, I started using, I was first in trouble for drugs when I was 12, the first time I ever used. That might have been a sign that it wasn't going to be a great career choice for me, but I didn't really, pay attention to shit like that. And then by the time I was sort of 13, I was using every day. 14, I was selling it to pay for it, and I got it when I just turned 41. So that, most of what happened in the 27 years in the middle, you don't need me to tell you about because you got your version right. But it started with one drug. I don't really believe in gateway drugs myself because I knew what I was going to use hard drugs. I read it in the little pamphlet they left on the tables back in the mid '90s at the youth centres, and 99 kids out of 100. That sounds horrible, and the other kid goes, "Where the fuck do I get hold of this?" And that was me, and I did because it's not hard, right? Money gets you most things if you can get hold of it. Anyway, so it says in our literature somewhere, there's no such thing as a functional addict. And I'd probably agree with that, right? I was what I call it, I say operational addict. I had the facade of quite a normal life. I went to uni, I've done a master's degree, I had a professional job for like 20 years, or had, until I got fired. And I just used, and every pay rise I got, my using went up, and every, blah, 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 blah. Until I was making pretty good money, like really good money with payday loans, so I didn't really steal for it, apart from my soul. But there's nothing functional about what's going on there, nothing functional at all. And I got fired in January last year because it just, I'd always been able to just deal with it. I could use 4 or 5 days a week. My drug of choice, enables that kind of stuff. And then one day, you could take a million tiny steps, and then one day it just stopped. Everything just my brain just stopped working, right? It just stopped. The drugs had stopped working. The brain wasn't working. I'd long lost my ability to talk my way out of stuff, which I generally relied upon, right? Intellect had gone. Physical health was terrible. Relationships were shambles. I'm married. God bless my wife. We've been together 17 years. She's not an addict. She's a regular, normal, has wine on Friday, might take drugs on New Year's Eve, like a tiny bit and be up all night, that kind of vibe. And, so the last year of my active addiction, it was fucking mental. Because once I decided I wanted to stop, I realised I couldn't, it just snowballed really, really quickly, The whole time I thought it was my game and I was moving the pieces and I was, it was all right. I was all right with it. I mean, and then when I was like, I need to stop this actually now, I was like, okay, that'll be all right. It's like, oh, yeah, I can't get 48 hours. Those weren't relapses because I hadn't come to recovery. There's a year of realisation. I tried everything that I could think of. Tattoos, a lot. That will remind me not to use. An hour and a half after come out of the tattoo parlour, I'm using. I went to the GP's route, right? I went, I've got a drug problem, like I'll pick one that's talking through, so drug and alcohol service. And I'm grateful for them, and I know that people have good experiences, and lots of people got clean there. I'll come out 3 times worse. I wasn't in the right place when I met them to do anything. I did the work, and they needed worksheets and stuff like that. I spent hours and hours, and there was always this big empty box in the middle. What are your triggers? And I spent so much time trying to work it out, did even more drugs, stayed up all night trying to work out why I was taking more drugs to try and listen, it's not on them that it didn't work out for me, but I went in there with a pretty solid 5-day-a-week habit and come out with a 7-day-a-week round-the-clock raging maniac. So, but God bless them as well. I sent them a letter after I left as a thanks because you've been part of my journey. My journey's my journey. It's not your fault that I wasn't ready. And also, what I learned when I got to the rooms. Actually, let me pause there. I got to the rooms because I'd exhausted that route. They'd be like, well, we can't do anything else with you, and you've maybe stopped using a little bit less, but we can't tell because you're a pretty good liar, and we don't really. So you've run to exhausted your options here. And I was on Google for about, like I said, round the clock using. What's going to work? I can't go to rehab. Can't afford it. Can't be away from my son, who I'm about to lose anyway. Right? Madness of it, and my wife. She's tolerated as much as she can. I'm a very present parent, and I'm not proud of this, but all through my using, I was there all the time. My father was absent, and I think I didn't quite know how to process the fatherhood emotions. And so I was just always there. I'd use all night till about 6:30, and he'd get up at 6:45, brush my fucking teeth, and then hang out with him for an hour, take him to school, make some performance to the teachers, crawl back to an off licence, to drink a couple of flipping little bottles of tonic wine, and then wait for my first dealer of the day to turn up, and then just repeat that 5 days a week, no sleep. So I was an ever-present father, but it's just mental, right? Anyway, got quite passionate about that sort of stuff. But the point of it is that I was on Google and I was just trying to find something that was not this. That was the first clause. What's the solution for me? Not this 12-step thing. Not doing that. Not rehab. I'm not going away. I need something in between. And I thought I'd found the answer anyway, and then they made it sound like it was going to be affordable, and then I had a little chat for it, but it clearly wasn't. And the guy was anyway, come in anyway, and the guy within this little assessment thing, I give him 50 quid. And he had me thinking about me in a way that I'd never been able to before. He picked apart my within about 10 minutes, childhood stuff. Did this ever happen when you were little? Not like abuse or anything, but psychologically, obviously. Yeah, but I never mentioned that. How could you know? And he was like, well, because you're an addict. Because you have all the underlying things for someone who's always going to be a fucking addict from childhood. And it turned out, and I was like, I can't do the 12-step things. It's all, blah, 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 odds. And he was like, well, I got 17 years clean in NA. And it was the first time in my life, my ears just kind of opened. You know what I mean? And I was like, okay, well, we have to do something. And so I got here for a sort of counselling. After the first session, I seen another guy. He was like, buy this book. It's called Basic Text. And he was like, read the first 60 pages before I see you next week. And I just read the whole thing. Straight away, as soon as I picked up that Basic Text and read it, it was like the fucking preface. Sorry for the tape, I swear. I'm working on that. As many of us, right? And I got as far as that, and I was like, so there's other people who have, whatever this thing is, other people got it too. So, and I just read the whole book. I didn't want to come to the meetings, mind you. I still didn't want to come to the meetings. Read the whole book. I was like, where do I get this step stuff, And then I got informed that we weren't like that. You have to do all the bits of the program and follow the suggestions. So anyway, shortly after that, I snuck in the door at Wanstead, for a 7:30 meeting, 7:29 and 29 seconds. Just tried to sit in the back. There were 45 people in there. I was like, oh. But I sat there, I shared it up, and ever since then, my life has been getting better. I did relapse. My life stacked up quite quickly after I finally put the drugs down. There's still ongoing stuff, right? So some things don't get fixed overnight. But, I got fired from my job and I just didn't think I could get another one to set up my little business, got 1 day clean or something like that. And it was just all over the shop, but it just survived. And I got some service pretty much straight away, in Leytonstone, which is my home group meeting, and I stood on the door there as a greeter outside, all 4 seasons, 52 weeks, every week. And it just gave me, if anyone's new, this service keeps you clean. It probably takes a lot of things to keep you clean, but what it does is give you something to get your shit back together around. If that makes sense, it gives me a bit of structure. I knew what I'm doing on a Tuesday, come hell nor high water, I'm on my door, opening that door and administering hugs. Whether you like it or you fucking don't, and it was great. It also gave me the ability to, because I took that equipment as well, because I was like, I am petrified of people I've been using on my own, round the clock for years. The only other things I've been doing is conning work people, lying to my wife and obsessing about my son. I just have not had any normal interaction in years. So hugging you lot on the door for a year gave me a bit of confidence back around that. Being part of a committee, small committee, and we can make some pretty small things quite difficult. But ultimately, it's a wonderful thing to be on an NA committee. Keep the doors open, and we're all here for the same reason. And that service really, it just gave me that anchor. Maybe I mentioned I was at that meeting, and then I started to enjoy meetings quite quickly. And that part of it's wonderful. And the step work, that's just a whole other level, right? I mean, you can come here, you can get clean, you can stay clean. And I just come here because I was going to die and lose everything in the process. I was going to die miserably on my own, and I was going to lose everything really painfully, really slowly along the way, and probably not that slowly, right? And then you discover this step work, and I'm through like 7 steps. So I'm halfway through my step 8 at the moment. And it just, I'm not a psychologist, right? But how it works in the levels of the brain is just something else. I've just been getting better. Not only getting better from drug addiction, but getting better from being me and whatever defects, it's the wrong word actually, whatever condition has been sat there since I was a little kid, which has made me not really interface with the world in a healthy way, I'm very, very, very isolated as a small child. My mum left my dad when I was about 6, no brothers or sisters. My mum worked at our primary school, right? So in the morning I'd get there real early and I'd just hang out, and then after school I'd just kick around for a few hours, like playing football myself. Go home, go to bed. And my dad used to go to his house briefly at weekends, and he would just sleep. It's not. I don't know if he's on the team or not, but he's a doctor's prescription sleeping tablets kind of guy. 50 years, 50. And then the weekend he would just sleep it off, so I just get up and just hang out on my own all day, and then go out for a bit. Do something nice, don't get me wrong, I'm very lucky in certain respects. But I just formed this entire way of being on my own in the world. And I was quite smart at school, so I used to, in the classroom I used to get my own work, so I sat there. So I just didn't really I didn't really feel like I got much back from the world or needed it for much. So I created this entire way of being in it. Fantasy stuff for the most part. You say playing football on your own, that's nothing weird about that. Doing it for 12 hours and playing all positions of both sides of the team all the time and being really into it, keeping the scorecard records and shit like that. You can be pretty fucking obsessive, right? Anyway, and then when I was about 9 or 10, I got a knee, it's called Osgood-Schlatter's disease. You could go a bit far, I'm quite short, but I grew too fast for my tendons. And I couldn't run or do any sport. So like that whole outlet was just kind of shut off, really. And then I was kind of drifted, didn't find anything sort of age 10, 11, 12, and that was me. I was done. I saw this drugs thing as something I could belong to. I mean, I didn't just take drugs. I just made drugs my life, like talking about them, thinking about them, selling them, doing them, only being friends with people who did them, regardless if they were bellends or not. That was my hobby. It was my everything, right? And then I didn't. What other people do when they're teenagers, but I didn't come out of that particularly healthy. I didn't even drink, really. I thought it was for knobbers. I grew up in a small town in Devon, and we just used to take loads of drugs, like LSD, ecstasy, we were like 14, just loads of it. But it didn't take me too long to find my drug of choice, but I had a habit on that by the time I was 16, and it just evolved. I'd always be thinking about it when I didn't have it. Using it on my own as well. There was no social phase, right? Sniffing, flipping, chat to people. Just let me sit. It's a very expensive way I found to be able to sit with myself. Very, very expensive way to be able to just sit on your own. I'm laughing. You know why I'm laughing. I don't have to explain that. It's not because it's funny, but it just is. The hundreds of thousands of pounds that have disappeared, it doesn't bear thinking about. But the point of that all really is, it doesn't feel like a distant memory because it isn't, and anyone who's been to that point, the thing I've heard it called the gift of desperation, but you will just do anything. You've just anything. I think I made this down before, but I would have chewed my fucking arm off to stop using drugs, but I know what happened. I would have just been using with one arm and just it just wouldn't have worked. And the fact that this is here, and once you get your head around it, or my experience, once you get your head around what's going on here, once you get your head around that higher power bit, what it can mean for you, and put all the preconceptions and learn stuff around gods, the world doesn't necessarily always help us around that stuff. But it's actually quite simple what you got to do here, And I can only say, I feel so grateful to be able to say that because I didn't think I was going to get it. I thought I would find a way to rebel against it. I thought I'd find a way to reject it, over-intellectualise it. And it's quite intellectual shit anyway, but I just... In fact, my key worker at the Drug and Alcohol Service told me this wouldn't work for me. He said, you'll try and outsmart it and you'll second guess it. Thank you, acknowledge the time. And obviously at that time, man, I just seized on that, right? I could have taken any excuse not to come and do anything. I'm trying my hardest. That won't work, you know. He says it won't work. Why should I try? You know, I won't just do is just another whatever. So, where am I going with all of this? I'm not entirely sure where I've been with it, actually. I guess I've just got a real appreciation for everyone I've met in NA, and that, you know, an appreciation doesn't necessarily mean I've go out smiling off of every single interaction. You know, of just for example, talking to new people is a wonderful gift of this, and learning how to talk to new people is quite hard because not everyone comes in the same shape, or whatever. And you know, I've had a couple of newcomer rep positions. You know, there's one guy who's just quite challenging for a group that I'm part of, you know, because there's an outside issue and some very disturbing behaviour, but when it's in the meeting, there's like, because it's not really the meeting, it's an outside, blah, 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 it's an outside issue, but it's inside the room and it's not, and you could, you know, we're all sat there having emergency business meetings because it makes someone's head fall off that day, and you know, that you don't necessarily always go home with the same, you know, huggy, sort of spiritually sound feeling. You go home and go, I need another meeting to recover from what we've just done there, but ultimately we're doing it because we want to protect that group, help that individual, help members of that group get through this situation, and ultimately there are traditions, but you know, it's not always crystal clear how you apply them. Anyway, that's just an observation. I need to share that in a different group than my usual one. But anyway, I think I'll start to leave it there. So yeah, I am very grateful, and I love this fellowship. And if anyone is new or struggling or coming back from a relapse, in fact, in particular, if you're coming back from a relapse, you know, coming to NA was the second best thing I ever done in my life. The first best thing is coming back after I relapsed. Yeah, because I thought it was all over. I thought I'd had this and then lost it, and it was just... And also, you don't get any free pass back to earlier phases of active addiction, right? Straight back to the mayhem. 27 years. I didn't get to slide back into being a teenager and laughing. No. I went straight back into batshit fucking crazy. And all of the old behaviours, it had worked a few steps as well, all of the old behaviours, immediately, it was just an on switch, the first time one went in me. So, if you're back from a relapse, you've done the best thing for yourself. And yeah, thank you. I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris.